Today, we are going to be talking about the upcoming 2026 class. It might be a little bit early, but we like to do these early previews, give everybody an idea of the class coming up. But stick around for all that and some more. Hello, and welcome in to the Dino Construction Podcast. Just like I said in the intro, we're going to be looking at the 2026 class. We're going to be doing a mock draft with David and I here. And we just kind of talked it out right before the show here. And I'm going to be taking the 101. David and I are just going to switch back and forth. I'll have the 101, 103, 105, so forth. And is there anything else, David, that we need to tell the people before we jump into it?
I think what superflex 175 tight end premium pretty much our standard format here. So, that's really the only housekeeping. I did want to ask just real quick, JP. I know we both, have been preparing for our Devi draft that's going on right now. A little bit different because Devi includes all of college football, not just people eligible in 2026. But I just wanted to ask your feelings on this class. I know a lot of people are kind of down on it going in. I'm wondering if you feel the same or if you think maybe it's just getting slightly overshadowed by the 2027 class that looks to be potentially elite.
I think it is a little bit of both because that 2027 class, I mean, there's a lot of freshman breakouts at multiple different positions that get us excited, especially the wide receiver position and the gem of all gems and Jeremiah Smith there. But he's not even the only guy that makes that class super strong. So I think it is a little bit of that. I think it's also that we don't have any of those Ted McMillan, Luther Burden sophomore breakout wide receivers that we've been super excited about. It's a little bit of that. The running back class, I think, looks slightly down, but at running back, you don't need to have a breakout as a sophomore. You can break out as a junior or senior. We're super excited. I mean, even like a guy like RJ Harvey, those guys are probably going to pop up all over the place in this draft. So I think it'll end up being solid, especially because there's a lot of interesting quarterback prospects, and that's one of the most valuable positions. So I don't hate the class, but I'm not in love with it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I feel as well. I don't think it's going to be as bad as some people are making it out to be. I think there's a lot of players that, like you said, we don't really have any like massive early breakouts that were like, oh yeah, this guy's going to be the first quarterback or first running back, first wide receiver. But I feel like there's enough like decent profiles to this point that some of them should enhance themselves to the point where next year we're like, okay, there's still a group of a handful of guys that we feel could be elite prospects, and then a good handful of guys after that that are solid. So I don't know. I'm not trying to get out of my 2026 picks for cheap, like some people have said to do, but I don't blame you if you're targeting those 2027 ones a little bit more because, like JP was just talking about there, that class should be nasty.
Yeah, I've targeted the 2027 class just a little bit more because I know how the market is treating it right now, and if I can't get somebody that's not charging a premium for it, then I'll take that pick right now and just see the appreciation of value. But yeah, I mean, this wide receiver class I actually don't think is terrible. You just need some big breakouts, and that's just some projecting that you just got to we just have to project that. So there's not as much safety in that class yet, but we'll definitely see some of those. But let's go ahead and jump into this draft. And at the 101 is a player that I don't know is going to be in this class for sure because we haven't even seen him start a full season in college. But that is Texas quarterback Arch Manning. I mean, everybody's heard of this guy at this point, and he's barely even played in college football because he's got the Manning name. Peyton Manning, their dad Archie Manning, Eli Manning. So yeah, he's got all the tools and resources to be a successful quarterback in college. We've already seen him play some. I mean, he's taken some snaps from Quinn Ewers here and there, and he's arguably looked better as a younger player who hasn't had as much experience in that offense. I mean, he's shockingly a pretty good athlete. So he's got 4 rushing touchdowns, and that wasn't even as a full time starter at all. I mean, we've seen him do a lot of option plays where he can pitch it to the running back or run it himself. So he's shown that he could have some of that Konami code to him, and also he has a 9 touchdown to 2 interception ratio last season. So that's pretty good. So I mean, with the third season in that system, he could have a really, really strong grasp of it. They've got a good receiving core as well. So he could break out this year. And even if he doesn't have a massive breakout, he just needs to have a pretty good season. And maybe he'll still come out because I know NFL executives are going to be all over this guy because of the last name, the tools, and the athleticism. So I could easily see him going 101 next year. but I think there's just as good of a chance 50-50 that he comes on the 2027 class instead.
Yeah, that's the real question with Arch. I think a lot of people have said that at least people within his camp think that he'll be going in the 2027 class, not the 2026 class. His family obviously has some money, even though he is Cooper's son, not Eli or Peyton's son. The Manning family has still done very well for themselves in general. So it's not like he's hurting for that NFL money, but that's still a lot of money. So, like, there's a realistic chance that he is in the 2026 class. Either way, we are not playing guessing games here. If you're eligible for this draft, you're allowed in this player pool. So I do think the 101 is pretty clear there. I think Arch Manning has to be the pick. I'm not so sure he'll be the quarterback one if he enters next year's class, but he probably will. So I think that's a very safe pick, especially value wise. It's pretty obvious to me. I think number two is kind of an interesting pick, but I think at this point in the process, if I were to have some weird league where we're drafting like this, we're doing, the draft a year out. I'm going to swing for that upside. It's going to be a quarterback again. I'm going to go quarterback Lenoris Sellers out of South Carolina. Well, let's start here. He's 6'3", 240, and he had 850 rushing yards last year. So he's definitely got that Konami code in him. He's also huge. Don't love to see the 11 fumbles that he put up last year alone. That's got to get fixed. Only 2,500 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Not terrific, sure, but it was his second year starting. If he continues to grow the way that he has from freshman to sophomore year, sophomore into junior year now, this guy could put together a special season. If that happens with his upside in fantasy with that rushing, I wouldn't be surprised if he is the consensus 101, but it would take a big season. I'm not saying that he is a shoe in for that. He's just got so many tools. If he can put it together, if he can improve as a passer and stay, elite as a rusher, maybe clean up those fumbles a little bit, then yeah, this guy could be a top tier quarterback coming out.
Darn it. Yeah, I was kind of hoping that he would be there for an easy pick for me to make out 103. So that's exactly who I would have taken as well. I mean, if you look at the Dynasty quarterback landscape, and if you have one of those top five quarterbacks with the rushing upside and they're good passers as well, that's just that's the most valuable asset in all of Dynasty. So if you got a chance at that, and this guy, he looked better and better throughout the season. In the early part of the year, I was like, oh, I don't know, man. But just as the season went on, he just started to see improvements, and that's what you wanted to see. And if he makes any more improvements, then yeah, teams are going to love this guy. Similar to the way they did with Anthony Richardson, but I think he's got a chance to be more proven passer if he does take that step forward here. But the 103, I'm going to take another quarterback. And this is where you said you weren't sure where I would go. And I think there's still a couple quarterbacks that could be in consideration here, but I am going to go with Drew Aller of Penn State. And that's because he has the size, he has the arm, he's got the athleticism as well. Maybe not, doesn't have Lenore Sellers' crazy high rushing upside, but we've seen that he can get it done on the ground as well. So I think that teams in the NFL are going to like this guy. I think people were kind of hoping he would come out this year. And I think he probably would have been a first round pick this year. And if we see him take any steps, I think that he's got a decent chance to be the number one overall pick, especially if Arch isn't coming out. I don't know. It's going to be a tough battle, I think, if he does take that step forward. But as a sophomore, he had a 25 to 2 interception ratio. That's really, really good. But the thing is, he didn't really push the ball down the field that much. They didn't put as much on his plate. So this year, his touchdown to interception ratio dropped a bit from 24 to 8. Don't love to see the interceptions go up, but his yards per attempt went up from 6.8 to 8.4. So I like to see that step that he's pushing the ball down the field more. He's got more confidence. And they were trying to run it back there at Penn State. They feel like they had a chance at a natty this year, and they came up short. And they're running back with Singleton, Katron Allen, Drew Aller. Reminds me of what Ohio State did when they brought back the gang to go for the natty. So let's see if they can actually do it. But I think Aller was good enough to be a first round pick this year, like I said. And if he does take a step forward, could be the number one overall pick. Teams are going to like the tools that he has.
He started to get some hype as a potential top 10 quarterback or top 10 pick this year until he decided to come back. Like you said, they ended up getting a lot of people to go back to Penn State this year. They are trying to make a run at it. In this world of college football, that's kind of the way to do it, right? You put together the team and then you convince them all to come back when they're maybe could have gone a year earlier. Worked for Michigan 2 years ago, worked for Ohio State last year. It's worked in the past for other teams. I think if he puts together a national championship type season, he could easily be a top 5 pick in next year's NFL draft. Definitely is still a little raw. Some things he needs to clean up, but he definitely has that potential and that upside, and I love the rushing ability there. So it is hard to disagree. I think there were probably 3 people I would have considered there. So that means there's 2 that I would consider here. I do go back and forth a lot, but I see Garrett Nussmeier go a little bit higher than the other guy. Well, I'm curious if you'll end up taking him, but if not, I just won't mention him. But I'm going to go with Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback out of LSU. He's the best passer we've mentioned so far, in my opinion, at least from what he's shown. But he just offers zero rushing upside, and in fantasy, we really like that. So that's definitely a concern that I have for him. But man, he's a pretty good passer, over 4,000 yards last year, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. They're going to have some solid receivers. They brought in Barian Brown from Kentucky and
Nick Anderson.
Nick Anderson. I kept wanting to say Nick Singleton, but he went to Auburn. So yeah, they're gonna have a good passing attack again. He's got another chance to put up a big season. He's 6'2", 200, so he's good size. The real concern there is, like I said, he just does not offer any rushing. I don't think he broke 100 yards in any of his seasons as a starter so far, which I guess was last year. But still, I don't think he broke 100 rushing yards, which is not what you want to see. That being said, I see him go top 10 in a lot of too early 2026 mocks. Both Jordan Reed at ESPN and gosh, I saw another one recently. Maybe Todd McShay. I don't know. There were a couple that were put out last week that I was looking over before this video. A little surprised to see him top 10 in both, but if he's at that point in his hype, you know, I- I'll take a top 10 quarterback with no rushing ability at this point in the draft. I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah, that was the deciding factor. Is also the age. So Aller's a little bit bigger. He has a little bit more rushing upside, and like I said, he's a little bit younger. So that was kind of the determining factor. But I think Nussmeier was a little bit more impressive this year, and the receiving weapons he has, man, he could be in for a Heisman season, honestly. So I'm pretty excited to have him on a Devy roster. But yeah, I think he could be a top 5 pick, and he's got the NFL bloodlines. I mean, his dad is a quarterback coach for the New Orleans Saints, who they're probably going to need a quarterback next year. So that'd be an interesting connection there. But now that we started here with 4 quarterbacks, and I'm going to move away from quarterback, and there's a running back that I know a lot of people like. I'm just slight. I think he's very, very good. I'm just a little bit lower on him, so I'm going to go with a wide receiver, and it's somebody that I was bummed to see you take in our Devy draft, and that's wide receiver Jordan Tyson. And I like what this guy brings as a freshman. He had 470 yards, and looks like that was in 9 games. I know he tore his ACL. Well, actually, it looks like the ACL tear was his sophomore season, but he bounced back this year with his quarterback Sam Levitt, who could be in this draft here today. But he had 1,101 yards with 10 touchdowns, and he even missed the game against Texas, unfortunately. So he could have had those stats even more, got to 1,200 yards, honestly. But I think he's got really good ball skills. I've watched some people break him down, and I think that with the size he has, is about at 6'1". I think that's kind of the perfect size in today's NFL because you that still gives you enough athleticism to make guys miss, but also not be too small for a quarterback's catch radius and everything like that. So he's my favorite to be the wide receiver one right now. I don't have a ton of confidence in that, but for over 1,000 receiving yards, he's probably one of the most productive guys, single season wise, returning back to college. And I just think that he's got the best chance to be wide receiver one with the ball skills, the production, and the size that he has. With also returning with Sam Levitt as quarterback, with that chemistry starting to grow even more.
Yeah, he might have been my pick here if you did not take him. So I love that pick. I think he probably is my wide receiver one in the class right now. That knee injury sounds like it was brutal. He wasn't really on my radar back then, but I think it was more than just the ACL. I think I read it was like ACL, PCL, and MCL or something. So definitely a massive knee injury that would raise a lot of concerns. But look, he played last year after that knee injury, and he looked excellent. Really, the only question, like his missed tackles forced per attempt numbers are pretty darn low for based on what I saw. At least I would have expected them to be higher. I do wonder if that knee injury factored in there. If we see him put that together, man, I mean, this guy could be an elite wide receiver prospect. So great pick. He's a lot of fun to watch. If he's not on your radar, go check him out. I'm gonna go back to the well one more time because I like my process, and I do not believe that 5 quarterbacks will end up in the top 6 picks of next year's superflex drafts. I just don't know how to separate these 5 quarterbacks very well. Well, I do. I think the top 2 are clear, and then the next 3 are a group. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take Cade Klubnik out of Clemson. He's definitely the riskiest of this group. Look, he's 6'2", 210. He threw 3,600 yards, 36 touchdowns to 6 interceptions last year. But the real thing that I like to see is he went from 99 attempts for 383 rushing yards in 23 to 99 attempts for 588 rushing yards in 2024. Also upped his touchdowns from 4 to 7 and downed his fumbles from 13 to 9. Still a lot of fumbles, but again, this is all inclusive, I believe. So like strip sacks and things count in there. So it's not all, him fumbling while running. So look, he offers the rushing upside. He's got the size. He's got 3 solid years under his belt. He's going to his 4th year, but that's okay. His 3rd year as a starter, which is something I think NFL teams really like to see. Get a lot of those starts under your belt. And one thing I'm going to mention about him that we talked a little bit about with Nussmeier, but is so much more true for Klubnik here. This guy's got some skill position players with him. We're talking about Bryant Wesco, Antonio Williams could be mentioned here later. I wouldn't be surprised. TJ Moore, they're both Wesco and Moore, very highly touted freshmen going into last season. So he might have the best 3 pack of wide receivers in the country. And I might disagree with that because of Jeremiah Smith being better than all 3 put together. But he definitely has some fun weapons to play with there, and I think he could be in for a big season with what he's put on paper so far. I think that could catapult him up into a top 10 potential pick at quarterback. You go top 10 at quarterback, and I get you at pick 6. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, he was definitely somebody on my radar, and I love their wide receivers. I'm kind of an Antonio Williams guy. He had a really good freshman season, and they got 2 freshman wide receivers that surpassed 650 yards. TJ Moore had 45 receptions compared to Brian Wesco's 41, but Wesco had a little bit more yardage. And man, you get those guys in year 2. They were highly touted as well. But I personally really love TJ Moore. I really have my eye on him. They had an All Star game or something that he just torched guys, so that's kind of what put him on my radar. But yeah, he could be in for a Heisman campaign similarly to Garrett Nussmeier. I think those 2 quarterbacks arguably have the best weapons alongside Arch Manning. So when you have promise and weapons like that, and you've been in the system, I think that's a very, very good combination to vault you up. So I'm going to go ahead and go with who I think probably will be the RB1, and that is Jeremiah Love. I mentioned I'm just a little bit lower on him. I think he's a very good prospect. I think he still has some things he needs to work on, but I mean, he's got the size, he's got the explosive ability, and he's got a receiving profile as well. So 28 receptions for 237 yards. That's really good. He had over 1,000 yards this year, and if we see him take a step forward, he could maybe have 1,500 plus yards this season with maybe getting close to 2,000 all-purpose yards. So I think he's gonna be a really good player. I think NFL teams are gonna just love all the tools that he has. I think that he's a little bit boom busty, but I think that's okay in the modern NFL. I mean, I think Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley can be a little bit like that sometimes. So I think just having that ability to boom on a play is very, very valuable, as well as getting a floor in fantasy when you have the receiving ability as well.
I think it's a 2 horse race in most people's minds for RB1. I think Jeremiah Love probably slightly ahead for most people. So hard to disagree with you there. I do like him a lot as a prospect. I kind of think there's a third name in that grouping that has a real shot at running back 1. I wonder if we're thinking the same 3. Be interesting to see because they will all get drafted here, I believe, because I'm running out of names that I feel confident in. Like I was telling JP here before we started recording, I had 10 players on my list for the first round. And then I got like 20 more that I'll pick between for the last 2 spots if JP doesn't make it easy on me. So it's just one of those classes where there's so much to learn over the next season, and there's so many guys that could either vault themselves into this first round of superflex drafts or keep themselves out of it. I guess easy way to say that there. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to my pick. I'm going to go ahead and check 2 boxes for myself. I'm going to draft a wide receiver, which I got to do in the first round of superflex drafts, and I'm going to be a homer. I'm going to take my OSU guy. I'm going to go ahead and take Carnell Tate here, wide receiver, Ohio State. Like he put up 73 or 73, 733 yards with first round pick Emeka Egbuka and all world stud Jeremiah Smith ahead of him on the depth chart. Like Emeka Egbuka's out of the way. They still got tons of talent on that wide receiver core, but he's going to be the number two option there. And if he can do 733 yards on a run first offense as the third option, I can't wait to see what he's going to do with slightly more opportunity. My biggest concern with him is he's not going to be the number one guy. He's not going to face the number one corner typically. If they want Jeremiah Smith on the line of scrimmage, he's going to be on the line of scrimmage. They like to move Smith around, so Tate will still get some of those opportunities to show he can be an outside X receiver at the NFL level. Just won't be quite as many opportunities as he might have if Jeremiah Smith was not there. So I have a little bit of concern there. But like he's 6'3", almost 200 pounds, probably weighing about 200 pounds come around time for the combine. He can have over 1,000 yards, get close to 10 touchdowns, which I think is very well in his range of outcomes. That would pretty much, I think, cement himself as a first round receiver next year's draft.
I think that's very fair. I think he kind of has some similar concerns to Jordan Tyson. I think it's the speed and the yak ability. So I think that these guys aren't quite complete. I just think that Jordan Tyson getting further from that ACL tear, that maybe he can prove that he's got maybe low in 4.4 speed or something with maybe a little bit more missed tackles for stability. So that's kind of why I lean that way, and because I've seen 1,000+ yard season from him already. But I mean, Carnell Tate's probably in for that. I'm not knocking him for that at this point when you play with wide receivers like that. So think that's a good pick there. I'm going to go with another running back. And I think, like you said, there's two names that I could mention here, but I'm going to go with Nick Singleton, Penn State here. I mean, he's like 225 pounds. He's slowly, I think, just gotten more and more impressive adding tools into his belt. Because after his freshman season, he was the Devi RB1, the darling, because he had the size, the explosive ability, the production. I mean, he had over 1,000 rushing yards as a freshman. And then the second season, we talked a little bit about this guy coming into the year because we thought he was going to be in this class, but his second year was a little bit down. He went from 6.8 yards per carry to 4.4. So that's that was kind of concerning. I think we saw something kind of similar to Travion Henderson as well, where he kind of took a step back. Maybe that was more injury related. But this season, as a junior, Nick Singleton, he bounced back. Kind of looked like his freshman self again, but also with more receiving ability because he had 41 receptions. If you give me a guy that has explosive ability, I mean, this guy's touted as a freak athlete. We'll see what happens at the testing, but he's over 220 pounds and has a strong receiving profile. That's enough to make me really in on a guy. But you also mentioned, you also see that he's got over 1,000 rushing yards, 6.4 yards per carry, 12 rushing touchdowns, and that's playing alongside another guy who's going to be drafted for sure, Katron Allen, his running back mate. He's definitely going to be drafted next year. He might even get into day two. We'll see. I don't know if the athleticism is quite there, but I think he's a really good back. So Singleton will be my pick here. If we see any step from him at all, I mean, I think he's got a strong chance to be the RB1 in this class.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of think I have him at RB1 myself right now, and that a lot of that is to do with the receiving ability he's shown at his size. I think had he come out this year like we thought he would, it would have been a talk about the big six going into the draft, and then whether RJ Harvey still gets the draft capital with Singleton in the picture, who knows? But let's assume he does, then it would have become a big seven. Should have just been an insane running back class. It already is, but if we would have added Singleton into there, oh my goodness. So I think I've got him just slightly above Jeremiah Love personally, but it is tight, and it's tight with this third guy I'm going to mention, who's been slowly rising up my list. I'll take Makai Hughes out of Oregon right now. He is a transferred from Tulane. He's going into his third season. First two seasons, albeit at Tulane, you got to take that grain of salt. Definitely interested to see what he can do against Big Ten competition this year. But at Tulane, first 2 years, 1,370 yards, 7 touchdowns, 1,400 yards, 15 touchdowns. No fumbles so far. Pretty impressive. Also had 20 receptions, 180 yards. Not great, but over 1 yard per route run. Shows me that maybe he can do it. They just haven't asked him to. So he's 5'11, 210. He's taking a massive step up in competition, which is hard to project, admittedly. Like it's definitely possible he goes into the Big Ten and he shows that he's just a guy. But I like what I see when I watch him on film. I really like the production profile we've seen so far. I like he could be an early declare if he comes out next year. Oregon is showing that they're good at producing NFL running backs. I think he's in a great situation to explode and run up these draft boards to the point where he could easily be a first round pick next year.
Yeah, I mean, he really could would make that jump because I'm seeing that he's got a pretty projected fast 40 time as well. So if you give the size, production, and 40 time, like you said, I just want to see that step from in the receiving part of it. So that's why I like the other two guys more. And yeah, like what you said between Singleton and Jeremiah Love, I just kind of default to Jeremiah Love just based on the age. He's gonna be a little bit younger coming out, but yeah, I think they are very close in ranking. But yeah, Makai Hughes, put him on your radar because he's not a name that I feel like a lot of people know. Now I got a tough decision for who I want to take. I've got I've got a list. I think my list is just a slightly bigger than 10. I think it's more like 13, 14 or so. Because there is some projection we definitely have to do here. I think I'm gonna go with the guy that I took in our draft, Eric Singleton Jr. I think that this guy might run in the low four threes, mid to low four threes. He's an electric fast wide receiver. He's coming from Georgia Tech going to Auburn, so we're going to see how he does in the SEC. But as a freshman, he had 714 yards. And as a sophomore this year, he didn't take quite the step I wanted to see. He got 754 yards. But what's interesting is they gave him some carries. So he got 21 carries for 131 yards. So they used him all over. So I just think that NFL teams are really going to like his ability to stretch deep, and also I think he's got enough tools to be more than just the deep threat as well. Like we've seen, like these Henry Ruggs, John Ross. I mean, the guys get taken that high even if they don't have a full tool belt just because of the speed. So now him going to Auburn, he's going to be playing with some other better wide receivers. So he's going to need to prove that he's just as good, if not better, than those guys to get first round capital. Like I said, even if he doesn't, maybe the speed is enough. But I think if he gets 1,000 receiving yards, he's going to be in round one without a doubt. So I like this player. I think that the fact that they're giving him rushes and downfield looks and just all over, I think he could be a pretty well rounded wide receiver.
Yeah, I think he's got just as good a shot as anyone left to enter that first round conversation. And this is a very difficult pick. I think I just counted there were 17 players that I would consider, and it's obviously that number will change significantly. The names will change as well. But just for this exercise, I'm I'm kind of between two players, and they're actually both available in our Devi draft right now. So I almost don't want to say either. You've got so many picks before I pick again. I'm not going to do that to our listeners, though. I'm going to go ahead and take a guy that he could easily bust. He could prove that he doesn't have the ability to separate that you need to be a true outside NFL wide receiver. He's got the size, and he came on so strong at the end of last season. I like the offense he's in. He's got a partner in crime who's very good as well, but will be working in very different ways as him. I'm going to take Jacoby Lane, receiver out of USC. I think Makai Lemon does a lot of work over the middle. He's also very fun to watch. He could have been a pick here, and I don't think that would have been wrong. Jacoby Lane, though, 6'4", almost 200 pounds going into his sophomore or going into his junior season. Just finished his sophomore season with just over 500 yards, but 12 touchdowns. Love to see that. Bowl game against Texas A&M, 127 yards on 7 catches for 3 touchdowns. Also love to see that. I think with his size and his ability to go get the ball, if he can just prove that he can separate well enough, then I think he could definitely be intriguing to a lot of NFL teams. But that is a concern. I mean, 1.6 yards per out run, and when you watch it, there's a lot of just when you watch him on film, there's a lot of go up and get it, jump ball kind of things. I'm glad he can win at those at the college level because you're going to have to do that at the NFL level with his profile. But like I said, he's going into his third year, so he's still developing. If he can just prove that he can run routes a little bit better than he has so far, I really like his profile.
Yeah, I think he's somewhere on that axis of Keon Coleman to George Pickens. He reminds me a lot of those guys. And it's not as much my type of guy, David. So I don't know. I might not take him, but I think he's definitely worth conversation because I mean he's got like truly elite ball skills. And, like it's really impressive. You see him go up and climb the ladder. Yeah, he does it pretty consistently. So he's a lot of fun to watch. I agree, and I guess now we're going to move on to our honorable mentions. We're each going to name one guy at the quarterback, running back, and wide receiver position that we think could climb into the round one conversation of rookie drafts here. And I want you to start at running back because I think there's one guy that kind of sticks out, and I kind of want to choose somebody else.
I think I'm going to pick somebody else then, because we'll circle back and we'll make sure that guy gets named, whoever it was that you're trying to get us to name. Let me pull up these numbers real quick so I make sure I'm saying it correctly. This is another guy I kind of want in our Devi draft who's available, so maybe shouldn't mention him. But again, reasons not to love his profile too, so maybe you won't. He's only 5'8", a buck 75. We go with Desmond Reed, running back out of Pitt, transferred to Pitt last year from Western Carolina. Has had over 800 rushing yards in all 3 seasons, including his first one at Pitt last year, 968. 22 career touchdowns to 1 fumble. We like that. Decent missed force tackle numbers. Thing I really like though at Pitt last year, 51 catches for 580 yards. That is very productive, and at his size, he's going to have to be able to do work as a receiver. So he's going into his 4th season, which is not early to declare, but also in today's world, the 4th year player is kind of, whatever. I don't consider that being old. So I like the rushing ability. I love the receiving ability. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. He might be a little too small to actually be a first round running back in our upcoming drafts next year, but a lot of fun to watch as a player, and we just love that receiving ability.
Yeah, that surprised me a little bit. He wasn't somebody I knew much about, but I think the one guy. I guess I'll mention both guys because the one I wanted to mention was running back Justice Haynes. I just he was ranked as I believe the highest running back in the draft class. It was him and C.J. Baxter. But I mean, as a freshman there, I think when in the Rose Bowl game against Michigan, I just thought he looked so much better than Jason McClellan. And then this year, when the whole offense changed, I don't think he just fit it all that well. I think that maybe why he didn't get all the production I was hoping for. But I mean, he showed a little bit more as a receiver, getting 17 receptions. But he's going over to Michigan, and I think that could be an environment pretty conducive for a breakout season. And I think that he's got the skills to be an all around back because I think he's got really good vision. He was super, like, insanely productive in high school. If you want to have some fun, go look at his stats there. But he's got the size and athleticism. So I like him. But I think the obvious guy who I thought you were going to name was Darius Taylor. And he's in the Big Ten there at Minnesota. And as a freshman, he played only 6 games, which injury is a little bit of a concern with this guy. But only 6 games, he had 799 rush yards and 11 receptions. Now this season, he was just shy of 1,000 yards. He was kind of their entire offense wasn't super efficient on the ground. So there's the efficiency and the injury concerns are kind of the thing with him. But he had 54 receptions, 54 with also 205 attempts on the ground, getting almost 1,000 yards. So I think that he has a chance to be an all-around back. Maybe not the workhorse of old school, but I think he's got a chance to be a round two back or so that's well rounded. I have to see how the athleticism is and everything, but yeah, I think that he is certainly in the conversation. It could maybe be RB 2 or 3 in this class.
Yeah, that's definitely a good name there. I think you kind of named 3 that were worth mentioning. Whether you did that on purpose or not, I don't know. I'll trust you did though, because you're good at this. Justice Haynes, obviously, and then C.J. Baxter. Also, Baxter coming back from a knee injury, but if he looks healthy, he definitely could make some noise next draft season as well. So I guess what I make you go first, and I pick the position now. Is that how we're doing this?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
I can't pick quarterback because I only got one guy that I want to talk about, and I don't want you to take him, but you probably will when it comes around to it. Let's talk about the position we haven't talked about at all yet. Let's do tight end. You got anybody you want to talk about?
Moving over to tight end, huh? The sexy position.
Yeah, I think there's one guy I see regularly, but I think there's probably 3 guys right now that I would feel have a shot. Obviously, a tight end, anything could happen. So like, I have no confidence in that list, but my list is at 3 names.
Yeah, I just don't have a ton of confidence. So, but I think somebody I've had my eye on for a little while was Lawson Lucky there at Georgia. Maybe he's not even one of the 3 names for you, but I just think that with the Georgia tight ends, I mean, they were stacked there. He was pretty highly touted, and I just think that his receiving ability. I've heard a lot of people in the Devy community talk about how this is like the next guy because he's that move. that move receiving tight end. We don't want the blocking tight ends. We want the guys that are the move guys. And Georgia does a good job of developing their tight ends. He's about 240 pounds, so he's kind of more of that like Evan Ingram mold where you're the move around guy. And he's just kind of been blocked there with like Oscar Delp and even a year with Brock Bowers. And then they had that Benjamin Ursic, I believe he was the one that transferred over. So he's just been blocked from a breakout season. But I think now it's kind of his time to have that breakout year potentially. So maybe not a guy that was on your radar as much, but just from based on what I've heard from Devi guys and just the athleticism and profile coming out of high school, combined with that Georgia, just their training and everything, he's somebody I think could be in the conversation here.
Yeah, I mean, you want to put Georgia's starting tight end, Iowa's starting tight end, Penn State's starting tight end into a hat and just draw it out, whoever it is. I don't care about the names. I can't really blame you. Those three schools are excellent at producing NFL tight ends. I'm just going to quickly name all three of the players on my list because, like I said, I don't have a ton of confidence in any of them, but they're the ones I see come up the most in this early, very, very early in the 2026 process. One I see the most is Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. 644 yards last year, 86.9 PFF receiving grade, 50 catches. Looks pretty solid. 2.4 yards per out run as a tight end is pretty good. 6'4", 235. You might want to see him put on a little bit of weight, but he's still young. He's still growing. Another year in a college weight room, he should put on a little bit more weight. Next thing I'm going to talk about is my Buckeye transferring in from Purdue, Max Clare. His biggest issue, honestly, is the competition in that room. We talked about it with Carnell Tate a little bit. Where's he going to fit in this lineup? Is he going to get enough work to put together the profile that gets him drafted near the first round or second round of the NFL draft? I don't know, but 51 catches, 684 yards, pretty darn good. 2.2 yards per out run. I've heard Ryan Day talk about him specifically and how they haven't had a guy like him there in a while. Could mean nothing. Could also mean that he's had some vision for a player like this in his offense and just hasn't been able to utilize it yet. So that's kind of exciting. Last guy I'm going to mention actually transferred from Ohio State last year to Cincinnati. Joe Royer had a little over 500 yards last year. Again, 50 catches. He's someone who, he might not be athletic enough, 6'5", 255 though. So if he can be athletic enough, I would guess that he might be the tight end one on a team that can stay on the field all the time. So those are the kind of the three tight ends that I was looking at. I don't think any of them I would put in the first round. Currently, obviously, we just went through our mock and none of them went in there. But yeah, it's hard to predict tight ends at this point. There's no Kyle Pitts, there's no Brock Bowers, so just a few names to consider there. And JP, I guess that means you get to pick the position for me now.
Yeah, no, I guess so. Those are the three names I see actually typically the most. I just want to give you a deep one there, but yeah, I mean, Max Player. I mean, for a sophomore having a nearly 700 receiving yards at tight end, very impressive. And I've just seen with Stowers particularly that he's somebody that could just be super super fast, but it's because he's a little bit lighter too. But we want, like I said, we want those move around tight ends. He's got to prove that he can be an inline guy though too. Don't want too much of the tweener status there. Let's see. What am I going to make you choose? I'm going to make you choose wide receiver. So go ahead and give me your top wide receiver left.
This one is difficult. There are several names that I could mention. One of them I almost did, but I already kind of talked about Makai Lemon out of USC. So let's give someone else a little airtime. You know what? I'm just going to do it. I was between two receivers there at the end when I took Jacoby Lane. I'm going to talk about Elijah Surratt out of Indiana. He's coming back for his senior season. He has transferred twice, both times, though, moving up in competition, not necessarily just trying to bounce around to find a fit or NIL money, anything. He is looking for tougher competition. Last year, 957 yards at 18.1 per reception at Indiana, 5.7 yak per reception, 2.7 yards per out run. Love to see that get over 3 this year, but that's still a pretty solid number. Not the best missed tackles forced per attempt, but I still like what I see with him with the ball in his hands. He's a good deep threat. He just looks like a complete receiver to me, as a amateur film watcher. But he's a lot of fun to watch, and Indiana's going to play some tough competition. I have no idea who their quarterback's going to be. Curtis Rourke, obviously going to the NFL this year. That'll be a big question for him, but he should be the center of that offense. Should give him a chance to put up some pretty big numbers.
We were like very much in line for like the top 10 or 12, but now like it surprised me a little bit with somebody like the running back one and Surratt. He was definitely my radar. But I think of Mekhi Lemon, who you mentioned. I think he really sticks out a lot because I mean he was pretty hopeful coming out of high school. He's very on 24/7 Sports. He was close to being a 5-star prospect. But he's a high 4-star. And last year he had 764 yards, and he didn't quite have the touchdowns. Jacoby Lanes was taking the touchdowns there. He was not the go-to guy in the red zone, but I kind of like these guys that are on like 5'11", 6 foot or so because he's just one of those quick guys. I think he's the route runner, the guy who moves the chains, and I think that with nearly 800 yards as a sophomore, if you see another step from him, I currently am as a top 5 wide receiver, and I just have to give my guy Antonio Williams a shout. I mean, as a freshman, having 600 yards is pretty impressive. As a sophomore, unfortunately, he got injured. But last year, in that really strong freshman uh, wide receiver room that we mentioned with those two guys, T.J. Moore and Bryant Wisco, he was more productive than them, which you want to see. He had 904 receiving yards, which isn't super impressive, but he had 11 touchdowns. So I think that was pretty notable. So I think that if this offense really takes off at 5'11", 190, literally the same size as Mekhi Lemon, I think that he's got pretty good athleticism and good hands as well. So I think he's just somebody who could be maybe in the top 40-ish picks. I don't know if he's going to be a first round wide receiver, but I really like him as a player.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling you were going to name Antonio Williams. A couple other guys just want to throw their names out there that I like: Denzel Boston out of Washington, Eugene Wilson out of Florida. Didn't really have a great sophomore season, but looked strong after his freshman. Evan Stewart probably needs to be mentioned. He's someone people love, but is just consistently mediocre. Um, so just a few more guys there at the receiver position I wanted to bring up. I only got one position left, and you're gonna go first. And I hope you don't say the guy I think you're gonna say, but you should probably say that guy. So I'll make the tough decision after if you want me to. Go ahead and give us your quarterback.
I mean, there's two guys I kind of have in consideration, so I'll just let you go ahead and go first. There's one I like a little bit better, but there's two guys I could talk about. So I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
Sure, yeah. I'll talk about Sam Leavitt um, out of ASU. He is going into his third season, 6'2", 200, over 500 rushing yards last year. So nothing there for sure. Don't know exactly what the upside is, whether you're going to be calling design runs for him or not at the NFL level. I'm not sure, but offers a bit there. 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and he missed, I want to say, 2 or 3 weeks maybe. And I think they maybe only lost one game that he actually started. So definitely looks good. I really like their coach there, Kenny Dillingham, I think is his name. He's just a really fun guy to listen to talk to. It seems like he loves his players. His players love him. So at the college level, when you get full team buy-in like that, you know your team could be a little dangerous. If they go on another run, especially without Cam Scatabo, Sam Leavitt could be the guy getting the hype that Cam Scatabo got last year. So someone I really like, someone I considered taking, but I just think he needs to do a little bit more than the other quarterbacks we talked about to this point. But I do think he has that potential. So I'm going to say Sam Leavitt, and I'm curious who you're going to say next.
The guy I'm going to talk about is somebody who was in this conversation, but kind of fumbled his bag there at Tennessee. That's Nico Yamalava, and he's going to UCLA. Don't love the situation, but I just think from a tools perspective, he's got the size, he's got the arm, he's got the rushing athleticism as well. I mean, they didn't have many weapons going to the Ohio State game, and he was just used like as a running back pretty much. And they were just banging him up the middle, and I mean, it wasn't like drastically successful, but he kind of got them some points just with his legs essentially. Because I mean, he had 20 carries in that game and two rushing touchdowns. So that was kind of their whole identity going into that game, and clearly it wasn't enough to beat them. I mean, it wasn't even close. But I just think that teams are gonna like just everything that he offers outside of maybe the trying to demand more money and letting the whole situation sour and holding out. But it's kind of a new landscape, so I'm not going to ding him too much. But breaking out at UCLA is going to be a little tough, but I mean, he's going into his junior year. So if he does manage to overcome those circumstances and still have a good year, I think he's going to rise up just based on all those tools. Teams love that. I mean, we saw Will Levis. He was thought to be a first round pick. He was very close, but just based on tools, we see guys go really high all the time.
Yeah, I think his issues for me, at least, there's going to be able to pick up that offense. Is that offense going to be strong enough? I don't really think the NFL cares about him fumbling the NIL bag. Maybe some of them look at it as a character thing, but he's a young kid. I think it's pretty well documented that he was receiving bad advice from people that he trusts. Uh, poor guy. Let dad stay out of his life. Let him make his own decisions. He's an adult. He's making millions of dollars. Let's let him decide how his future is going to go. Of course, that's just from the outside. Maybe we're getting bad information. Maybe his dad is a terrific person who's done a great job. Obviously, he's not a bad person. I just think he gave bad advice there. Well, I don't know if he's a bad person. I don't know the guy at all. But I do think Nico's a good name there. I just want to throw in a couple that I was considering. Carson Beck, obviously, last year going into the season, we thought he might be the top quarterback. Transfers to Miami, who just put out the 101 last year at quarterback, and Cam Ward. So if he could put a season together there, he might have a chance. And then I was just looking this up to try and figure out if he took Sam Leavitt, who I was going to have to say. A little small at 6'1". He's 220 pounds, though. John Mateer transferring to Oklahoma. Did you know he had over 1,000 rushing yards last year at Washington State?
Yeah,
That's
I
pretty
think
good.
he's the favorite to like lead as the running quarterback. It's him like Lenore Sellers. So
That's pretty darn good. Over 3,000 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. It's not like Washington State's playing bad competition either. I mean, I know that with the dissolution, with the Pac-12 dissolving, when that happened, like obviously last season they played slightly worse competition than they would have had that not happen. But he's still playing good teams. He's put up pretty good numbers last year. Going to Oklahoma, that'll be really interesting. If he can rush for 1,000 yards as a quarterback in the SEC and look decent as a passer, then he could get some steam too. Uh, yeah, I don't know. We've thrown out a bunch of names. I think you count the 12 we picked and the two officially that we each picked at each position. That's 20 names. Probably threw in another dozen or so more. So, anybody else you think needs to be mentioned here? You think we've done a pretty good job introducing the potential 2026 class so far?
the one guy I'd probably throw out there would be Dante Moore of Oregon. We've seen quarterbacks have success in that system. I mean, Dylan Gabriel just got drafted day two. We saw Bo Nix. Dante Moore's been sitting there, learning the system. So the fact that they have weapons and the offense has just been good overall, I think they got good coaching and just that he knows the system really, really well now. He's a very highly touted guy. Maybe we do see a breakout year there as well.
One more guy I do want to throw in there too. Probably should have actually been my running back honorable mention, but I like Desmond Reed and I wanted to throw him out there. I just mentioned Jonah Coleman real quick out of Washington. Over 1,000 yards there. We going into his fourth season. He's 5'9", 230, so still a little short, but kind of more of a bowling ball. But he does not look like a bowling ball. He's pretty athletic out there. Almost 0.35 missed forced tackles per attempt last year at Washington. Love to see that. Not a nothing in the receiving core either, just under 1 yards per outrun. So someone interesting to watch. There's just one more name for you from each of us. I think that about covers it. We might do another 2026 video or two in the off season, but certainly once we get wrapped around into the season, start looking ahead to the 2026 class, we'll dive deeper into these players. But for all of us here at Dino Construction Podcast, we want to thank you for joining us. We hope this episode was as helpful for you as it was for us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.